Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is Embers Rekindled. Today I'm going to be showing you how to get started in this Minecraft 1.20.1 and up mod. Okay, this is very similar to the Minecraft mod Embers. In fact, just about everything is the same, but there are some very important changes that have been made to it, and I figured it was worth a bit by bit because it has come out for Minecraft 1.20.1. And today I'm going to be showing you a little bit about where to start. So let's start over here. I currently have some lead and some silver. These are going to be some of the ores that you're going to find in the world. There is some world generation. There's also these weird little structures in here that may also have little golem inhabitants in there, which I will cover momentarily. But you can find these at certain Y levels. There is a little bit of overlap in some of this. You'll probably be best to find some of this stuff mostly around like -10 to -15 is where you're going to find both lead and silver together, and you will need a bunch of those. That aside, there's other things that you can make as well. Caminite. This is going to be another ingredient that you're going to need a bunch of. It's made with 4 clay and 1 sand. We'll get you a whole bunch of these, then you cook them up and you get bricks, and then you can make all sorts of different block variants. Any of those can be used for different kinds of ingredients for making any of the machinations that Embers offers. So, as you explore in the world, you may find some archaic bricks in some kind of weird opening like this, in which you will find some kind of golem in or around this area, depending upon if it's connected to any kind of tunnel or anything. This one is not, so like and subscribe here is currently stuck in place. As you can see, they have a lot of health and a little bit of armor. In fact, they're immune to knockback, and if you kill them properly, you should be able to get special drops from them. In this case, it might take me a bit to kill them. Yeah, just as a reminder, they are immune to knockback, so if they start walking at you, they will just trounce you. But they also have ranged ray gun attacks, similar to the one that I was just using. They usually will drop archaic bricks, which you can use to make the different kinds of things you see here, including a nice archaic light, but that's something you'll have to make a little bit later on. You may also find some of these crystal seeds in a set up in any of these things. These you can use much later in the mod, but just be aware that this is something worth marking. So if you have a map mod or something like that, you might want to put a waypoint or mine it if you are allowed to. In this case, I can. So after killing one of those guys, you'll find an ancient motive core and some archaic bricks. You can use those to make one of these, an ancient codex. This is going to be kind of like an instruction manual / quest book that you can use to kind of navigate a little bit of the mysteries of Embers. It's not going to tell you everything, but it is a little bit better organized and works a bit better than it used to in the previous versions of Embers. So just by opening it up, you can see we've got like 5 different chapters. I currently have already unlocked all of the things in these chapters. The only thing that's really preventing you from unlocking these is clicking. You don't actually have to have accomplished anything in this guidebook in order to unlock things. But you should be aware that there is also some notes down here that gives you a little explanation on how to use it. And if you want to start searching for something, for example, I was looking for a seed, you can type something in there and it tells you exactly the chapter that it will be in, provided that you've already unlocked that area. Otherwise, if I just look for the letter S, you can see that it's available in several of the chapters. Deleting that, I am now back to this, and we start off with the natural energy area. If you want to, you can use any of these things. As you click them, you right click, you basically will take this off and unlock where it connects to next, kind of giving you an idea of how you can progress through it. It doesn't always work in the exact order that you might have it in this book with how you find things, but it can be useful. Things that look like this, that have the extra points on it, as opposed to these regular squares, will have an extra page. Basically, it's like opening another chapter. In order to go back, you just press escape, and you can undo what you were just doing. It gives you little blurbs about what each of these different things are. Kind of nice. A little bit of interest. So if that's all you want to know about this mod, and you want to experiment yourself, go for it. Otherwise, there's lots of spoilers ahead, so let's get into it. First things first, before you start making any number of things, you're going to need tools. And for that, you're going to want to make a tinker's hammer. Tinker's hammer is made with just some iron, lead, and some sticks, and it's going to be pretty much infinitely durable and fantastic. It's used to make plates for the most part, and these plates are also ingredients in a lot of the recipes, so just be aware of that. A lot of the recipes are also a lot less expensive than they used to be, which is kind of a good thing because you don't find ores quite as easily as you used to in modern day Minecraft. That being said, you can also use it as sort of like a wrench for some interactions on some machines, so it's a very important tool you will need at some point in order to make things work. And I'm sure by now you've noticed I've got a whole bunch of stuff in front of me. I have fluids in here and items over here. We're going to be talking about how you can make a bunch of these things, but not all at the beginning. This is just going to be the early entry game stuff. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do later on. Now in this case, I'm going to grab a bucket of water as well as an empty one just in case I need to delete anything, but we're going to be covering some of these things here. We've got this, a fluid vessel. Made with some of that caminite and those plates that I was talking about. It'll hold about 16 buckets worth of most fluids that you should be able to come across. Now you do have bucket interactions, so you can just bucket things into it or remove them from it if you so desire. As I'm in creative, none of these are going to change in my inventory. On the outside of this, I have something called a fluid dial. This is made with another iron plate and paper, and then placing it on the outside of one of these things will basically tell you the contents of what's inside of it. In this case, it's 14 buckets of water. So I have a much better way of storing some water, but I mean, heck, just having a little bit of water down here on the side is often more than enough to store water. But you will need it to run some of your machines later on. So this is going to be an early version on how you can actually get that to work for you. Now, as far as moving liquids around, well, vanilla Minecraft doesn't offer that, but Embers does. In this case, you'll want fluid extractors and fluid pipes. Fluid pipes require some iron, and that's pretty much it. You get a whole bunch of them for a little bit of an investment. The extractors require a few of those pipes as well as some caminite and redstone, and you get an extractor. But that's not all. You will also need some sort of way of turning these on and off. I'm going to recommend the caminite lever. It looks really good, and you get 4 of them from one caminite plate, which is just a little bit of extra materials. Now, how the piping system works in Embers is that if you have a source, you then need to have something that will pull from that source. In this case, it will be an extractor, a fluid extractor. Then you'll need some sort of pipe connected to that. Now, you could feasibly have another fluid extractor on there, but it's a matter of where the power is. Yes, these things are going to be redstone powered, so you can put the redstone here, you can also put it on top of it, or you can put it on just any kind of neighboring block. Now that being said, if you have your tinker's hammer, then you can also adjust the different kinds of pipes to your liking so that they will interact in ways that, well, you want them to, or not. So in this case, let's cut those off. I just want a straight line from one tank or fluid vessel being pumped out with the fluid extractor and a caminite lever, or just any lever will do really, will pump out into another fluid vessel. I have another one back here. Both of them have nothing in it, but if I flick this lever, you can see that there's actually an animation showing you that some of this stuff is flowing over here, and pow, it is now in place. Now here's something that's pretty neat. If I turn this lever off, and I have another extractor at the other end. You don't have to, you can just have a pipe going into it. But if I have an extractor at the other end, then I can also reverse it. So I can then say, all right, well, if that redstone signal's off, let's turn this one on and I can pump it back the other way. Now if I turn them both on, you can see that there's going to be some kind of problem. So you'll want to keep that in mind. Now if I take this and I then have 2 tanks, it's going to go into whichever one is the closest first, and then if there's more buckets coming in, once the first source is full, it will then go to the next one. But there may be some left over in this section here. So now let's go on to mass fluid storage. That's right, 16 buckets is a small paltry sum when you can use one of these, a reservoir. This just looks like a regular cube until you place it in the world, in which case it creates this massive 3x3x1 structure, which is what this level is here. Above that, I have one of these, a caminite ring. But before that, let's see the reservoir recipe. Just some caminite bricks in one of those fluid vessels. A caminite ring is just a bunch of caminite bricks. But if you put it on top, just by clicking in the middle of one of these reservoirs, you can extend it. Having one layer is the equivalent of 40 buckets worth of liquid. By clicking on here, you're adding another 40 buckets, and another 40 buckets, and another 40 buckets, so that it can get quite a bit going on there. So in this case, let's disconnect this, and I'm going to put down fluid pipe going up into this, which is a mechanical core. Mechanical core does require lead plate and some Caminite bricks, but it's a way of having inputs and outputs going into a reservoir, because without it, it looks just like this, and you have one input. But then you can't pull that back out quite so easily. I mean, you could feasibly with a fluid extractor, but it's going to get a little bit messy at times. So what's recommended is you add one of these, and it turns one port essentially into 5 ports. So you get 4 around the side and 1 on the opposite face. Then you can have other outputs coming out or inputs going in to this structure as needed. In this case, I'm going to pull this lever, and you see that it is now filling this up. And if I look inside, you can see that there is a little bit of liquid. And I can just keep on pumping this in here and just have tons of liquid going in. But you can see that it is currently just slowly filling it up. There's plenty there, and I don't really have much concern about it getting to the top anytime soon. There is one more thing that I want to show you, and that's a fluid transfer. In this case, I'm going to remove one of these pipes. I'm going to put this here, and you can see that there's like little arrows that are pointing in one direction. What this means is that it's going to have the fluid come from one area to another. Now, I currently have water in this fluid vessel here, and I have none in this one. Let's turn this lever off. In fact, let's just remove these extractors so you don't have any confusion at all, and I'll just put down some regular pipes, make sure that they're separate. So if I put a bunch of water in here, this acts as a filter for what goes through it. Without interacting with it, it will just allow anything to pass through. So there you go. You can see the green glows are going through there without a problem. So if I click on this with water, it will say water can go through here, which is fine as well. Now, if I do something a little differently and I switch it to lava, you can see here, if I put a dial on here, I've got just over 8 buckets worth. So if I switch this to lava, that means that only lava is going to be allowed to go through this path. Then it might actually change, and you can see now it will allow it to only have the lava go to another one, which sadly only has water in it. So it's going to have some kind of problem with that. But at least now you understand how the filtering works with a fluid transfer. Now let's have a brief look at items. Moving items around, having them picked up and dropped in the world, as well as transferred around. It's rather similar to the fluids, but it does have a few more options for what is there. Now in this case, I have this, a bin. A bin is just a really pretty way of storing one stack of one item. It's not very practical, no, but you can just put a whole bunch of stuff in there. So in this case, if I wanted to have a whole bunch of bins in my bin, then I could do so. Now let's move things around. Now, as before, we've got an item extractor, similar to the fluid extractor, and functions in exactly the same way. So I can use this to transfer things around. And also we've got an item transfer. So as before, it will also allow me to move things with a filter. So if I have this Caminite lever next to this item extractor and some kind of pipe next to another bin, pulling the lever, it will have all of it go out. Turning that off, and then if I say, all right, I only want bins to go into my bin, then I pull the lever, it's going to say no. So we're going to have a little problem, and I might have to refilter that properly so that it can have all of them go in. There we are. Putting this back in this bin, I can then have it transfer back and forth, same as before, just by having whatever the pump is on here get a redstone signal. Turning that off, I can then move these ember pieces back into this other bin. Very simple and straightforward stuff. Something I didn't mention is that item pipes are made pretty much with lead and lead plates. The extractor is made with Caminite and redstone, plus some of those item pipes. Now there are a couple more items in the item movement area that is different from the fluid, and that is the item dropper and the item vacuum. Now if I have this pumping out, it will go out to an item dropper. which is made from item pipe and lead ingots. It's pretty straightforward. It works like a shower. So if I pull this lever here, you can see that the items just kind of dropped out. Now this here is an item vacuum. This will pretty much suck up things in a very large area, so be careful. And it is appropriate to where it's facing. We just use some item pipe and some more lead ingots, and it will face in an area like so. It will also have some suction on the side of it and could go past the face of this, so you might actually want to have other blocks or something like that nearby just to ensure that if anything is being suctioned towards it, that it still does so properly. But keep in mind it's also redstone activated, so you do have to have a lever next to it in some way so that it'll actually work. By turning this on, actually let me turn that one off so that it can actually extract into the right area, it will go into the nearest bin. There we go. Now if I do this and I have those going out, I can then have a constant circle of items being fed through. So let's finish this video out by showing you how you can start mining up a bunch of Ember Shard pieces and use that in the future. Yes, that's right, this is only part one of a multi-part series, but you will need a little bit of stuff. Item extractors and pipes, at least one of each would be very useful. You could use a hopper as well as one of the inputs. I'll use that for demonstration purposes. You will also need a mechanical core and an ember bore. An ember bore is made with some Camonite bricks and a mechanical core, plus a little bit of iron and copper, but nothing really big. Now, it takes up a 3x3 area, as you see here when placed. But you should be made aware that if I place it in this spot here, where this chiseled deep slate is, I'm going to have a slight problem. You'll notice that the 3x3 area that it covers is on top of a bunch of deep slate, polished deep slate, chiseled deep slate, and a couple pieces of bedrock. Now, the exception with this is you need to have the ember bore on top of at least 3 pieces of bedrock. So in this case, instead of having it here, I'm going to put it here. There we go. And you'll know that it's working, or you can tell if it's working when these blades that are underneath are spinning and some loud sounds are coming out of it. Now, in order to get this thing going, you're going to want to have a mechanical core probably put on top. Yes, you could just use a hopper, but you also need to pull things out of this. So this will allow you multiple inputs and outputs all at the same time. As you can see here with the highlight, it says fuel can go in and ember can go out. So in this case, I'm going to put a hopper on one side just to demonstrate that I can actually do that for an input. Then for the extraction, I'm going to put in an item extractor and a pipe. And I will also grab a barrel so that I can just put this up on top. And you can see it will pull from here and push it into the barrel. But of course, I will need some kind of on-off switch for that. So let's just turn that on straight away. It's going to start extracting anything in there that it mines up. It will not extract things that you input into it. So keep that in mind. If you do put things into this by accident that you don't want, just mine up this setup and you should drop any items that have not already been used. If you have something like fuel, in this case I have a big bucket of coal, it might use some of it up before you're able to actually stop it from doing so. In this case, I'm going to put a bunch of coal in. It's going to start working. You can see that the wheels are spinning at the bottom, so it is grinding for ember. Now, ember will come out in multiple different shapes. I'll go over that in a moment. You should also be made aware that there is another item that can help you find more ember than usual, an atmospheric gauge. It's just some copper, iron, and redstone. Nothing too fancy here, but as you fly around in the world, you'll notice that the little gauge on there might increase or decrease depending upon where it is. This means that you'll get a little bit more yield than you normally would otherwise, or less depending upon the area that you're in. Now looking in here, you'll see that we've got ember grit, ember crystals, and ember shards. Basically it takes 6 ember shards to make 1 ember crystal, and 1 ember grit is equal to 1 ember shard that has been smashed to pieces. These are going to be the main fuel, and I think with that we're going to call it there. This is a good place to stop because usually it'll take you a little bit of time to get yourself a whole bunch of those ember pieces. Next time I can show you how to use them for lots of your machines, and we can get into a few more intricacies of the Embers Rekindled mod. So if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe. Don't be afraid to click don't be afraid to visit us on Twitch, as we stream there regularly. Till next time, folks, I'll see ya.